The gleaming hull of the ISS Tortoise reflected the artificial lights of Orbital Naval Station Alpha as it hung in space like a sleeping giant. Captain Elena Voss stood at the observation deck, her back straight and her gaze fixed on her command. While other ships in the Galactic Alliance were sleek, fast, and deadly, the Tortoise was bulky, heavily armored, and notoriously slow. Twice as slow as standard Alliance vessels, she murmured to herself, fingers tracing the outline of her ship against the starscape. But twice as sturdy. The year 2385 marked the third decade of what historians now call the Minor Stellar Conflicts, a series of territorial skirmishes between various factions of the Galactic Alliance. What had begun as diplomatic tensions over resource-rich asteroid belts had escalated into armed confrontations that threatened the fragile peace of humanity's expanded territory. Elena's uniform felt unusually tight around her collar as she prepared to join her crew for deployment. The Tortoise had been assigned to the 7th Fleet, an elite group of vessels tasked with border security in the Orion Arm. It was an honor that came with whispers and sidelong glances from other captains. After all, what good was a warship that couldn't keep pace with its fleet? Captain Voss. The voice behind her belonged to Admiral Cassius, a stern older man with eyes that had witnessed too many battles. Your boarding time approaches. Elena turned and saluted. Admiral, the Tortoise is ready for deployment. Is she? Cassius raised an eyebrow. Engineering reports your FTL drive is still operating at suboptimal capacity. Maximum speed still registers at only 47% of fleet standard. The Tortoise's specifications have always been different, sir. Our efficiency lies elsewhere. The Admiral's face remained impassive. The Alliance built the Raptor-class vessels for a reason, Captain. Speed kills in modern warfare. Your outdated Tectonic-class ship is an anomaly we tolerate due to budget constraints. Elena felt her jaw tighten but maintained her composure. The Tectonic class has advantages that... Save it for your crew, Captain. Cassius checked his wrist display. Fleet Admiral Joe has assigned you the trailing position. Try not to fall too far behind when we reach the border systems. After the Admiral departed, Elena allowed herself a moment of frustrated silence. The Tortoise wasn't simply slow by design flaw. It was slow because its massive power core diverted energy to other systems, including the experimental gravitational manipulators and enhanced shield array. But such explanations fell on deaf ears in a Navy obsessed with velocity and first strike capability. Boarding the Tortoise. An hour later, Elena was greeted by the familiar hum of its systems and the efficient movement of her crew. Despite the ship's reputation, she had personally selected each member, looking beyond conventional qualifications for individuals who thought differently. Engineer Tran Min met her at the bridge entrance, his uniform slightly rumpled as always. Captain, final systems check complete. We're green across the board except for the usual. His eyes sparkled with barely contained enthusiasm, despite delivering what most would consider disappointing news. Let me guess, FTL drive still underperforming by Alliance standards. Elena allowed herself a small smile. Their standards, not ours, Min replied with a shrug. But I've been working on something that might give us a temporary boost when needed. I call it a thrust booster. It's highly experimental and carries some risk of overheating the engine core, but save the details for the briefing, engineer. I want all senior officers to hear this. Elena stepped onto the bridge where her command crew was already at their stations. The atmosphere changed subtly as she entered Bax. Straightened conversation ceased and all eyes turned briefly toward her before returning to their duties with renewed focus. This wasn't the fearful respect she'd witnessed on other vessels, but something she'd worked hard to cultivate: attentive readiness. Chemical Officer Tal, a tall, angular individual with Martian heritage, evidenced by their slightly reddish skin tone, approached with a data tablet. Captain, I must register my concerns about Engineer Min's proposed modifications. The thermal load on our reaction chambers would increase by 42% during boost operations, potentially compromising our primary shielding. Elena noticed the slightly condescending tone when Tal mentioned the boost. Your concerns are noted, Officer Tal. We'll discuss all angles during the briefing. With respect, Captain. Tal continued, lowering their voice. Perhaps we should consider requesting a transfer to one of the newer Raptor escorts. Your command record would certainly justify. I didn't request the Tortoise because I wanted the fastest ship in the fleet, Officer Tal. Elena interrupted, her voice, measured but firm. I requested it because I believe in its potential. Is that all? Tal's expression remained neutral, but their eyes betrayed frustration. Yes, Captain. As the rest of the crew completed pre-launch preparations, Elena took her command chair and gazed at the main view screen. Beyond the station, the other vessels of the 7th Fleet were already maneuvering into formation, sleek, predatory shapes, against the void, their engines glowing with barely restrained power. Communications, open a channel to Fleet Command, she ordered. Channel open, Captain, responded Lieutenant Diza from her console. 7th Fleet Command, this is ISS Tortoise. Pre-launch checks complete, requesting permission to undock and assume trailing position. There was a brief pause before the response came. ISS Tortoise, this is Command. Permission granted. Try to keep up this time, Captain Voss. The last sentence was followed by poorly concealed laughter in the background. Elena felt her bridge crew tense at the slight. Acknowledge command. Tortoise out. She turned to her navigation officer. Lieutenant Quan, undocking sequence. Take us out smoothly. As the massive clamps released and the Tortoise slowly pulled away from the station, Elena addressed her crew. I know what they say about us about this ship. I've heard every tortoise and hare joke in the Alliance. But remember this, in the original story, the Tortoise won. Some of the crew members exchanged glances, but a few smiled. Elena continued. We may not be the fastest, but we have advantages they don't understand. And one day soon, they'll see exactly what the Tortoise can do. The ship joined formation as the fleet prepared for FTL jump, taking its assigned position at the rear. On the command channel, Elena could hear the other captains checking in with barely disguised impatience as they waited for the Tortoise to reach jump coordinates. All vessels prepare for synchronized jump on my mark, came Fleet Admiral Joe's voice. Destination Frontier Station Epsilon. Elena watched as the stars on the view screen elongated and transformed into streaks of light as the fleet entered FTL space. As predicted, the Tortoise lagged behind its massive frame, requiring more energy to tear through the fabric of space-time. We're maintaining 92% of calculated velocity, Captain reported Navigator Quan. Fleet vessels are advancing at approximately twice our speed. Estimated arrival at Frontier Station Epsilon 7 hours behind the lead vessels. Elena nodded. As expected. Maintain course and speed. I want all department heads in the tactical room in 10 minutes. Let's use this transit time productively. In the tactical room, Elena faced her senior officers around a holographic display of their destination. Frontier Station Epsilon sits at the edge of contested space. Our mission is to show Alliance presence and deter incursions from the outer coalition forces that have been probing our borders. Intelligence reports indicate minimal threat level, offered Security Chief Reyes, a former Special Operations officer with a perpetual look of suspicion. Standard patrol pattern with the fleet, then back to base in 2 weeks. Elena zoomed the holographic map outward. Perhaps. But I've been studying the stellar cartography of this region. The Epsilon sector has unusual properties, multiple dwarf stars, creating gravitational corridors, asteroid fields rich in rare minerals, and several routes that don't appear on standard navigation charts. Hidden routes. Chemical Officer Tal raised an eyebrow. That seems speculative, Captain. Not hidden, overlooked, corrected Engineer Min, suddenly interested. High-speed vessels plot the most direct courses. They wouldn't bother with gravitational slingshot paths or regions with complex navigational requirements. Elena nodded. Exactly. While we're in transit, I want a complete analysis of these alternative routes. If hostile forces are operating in this sector, they may be using paths our standard patrols would never check. A reasonable precaution. admitted Tal, though their tone suggested they found it excessive. Now, Engineer Min, tell us about this thrust booster you've been developing. Min activated a technical schematic on the display. It's essentially a temporary override of our safety protocols, allowing us to redirect power from non-essential systems to the FTL drive. We could achieve up to 70% of standard fleet speed, for short bursts perhaps 2 to 3 hours, before risking critical systems failure. That's still slower than the fleet, Tal pointed out. But faster than we are now, countered Reyes. Sometimes a small advantage is all you need. The risk of engine combustion is significant, warned Min. We'd be pushing the reactor design beyond its specifications. Elena studied the schematics. How long would it take to implement? The modifications are already prepared, Min admitted, with a slightly embarrassed smile. I've been working on this for months. With your authorization, I could have it ready before we reach Epsilon. Proceed, Elena decided. But keep it quiet for now. I don't want Fleet Command questioning unauthorized modifications. She turned to address the entire group. Let's use our transit time to prepare for every contingency. The tortoise may be slow, but we will be ready. As the meeting concluded, Tal lingered behind. Captain, a word. Elena gestured for them to continue. I'm concerned about morale. The crew hears the comments from other ships. They know we're viewed as the relic of the fleet. And what do you suggest, Officer Tal? Perhaps we should focus on the roles we can perform effectively, rather than trying to compensate for our limitations. Support functions, rearguard operations. You think we should embrace being second-rate? Elena's voice contained no anger, only curiosity. Tal hesitated. I think we should be realistic about our capabilities. Noted, is that all? Yes, Captain. After Tal left, Elena remained in the tactical room, studying the stellar charts. There was a pattern here, something that nagged at her strategic instincts. The dwarf star pair in the Epsilon sector created a natural corridor, what stellar cartographers sometimes called a space gorge, a region where gravitational forces created a channel that could accelerate or trap vessels, depending on their approach vector. Computer display historical patrol routes through the Epsilon sector for the past 5 years. The holographic display shifted, showing hundreds of crisscrossing lines representing vessel movements. Elena filtered out civilian traffic, focusing only on military patrols. A pattern emerged, or rather a gap in the pattern. The space gorge between the dwarf stars was almost entirely avoided by Alliance vessels. Why avoid it? She murmured. The gravitational calculations are complex but navigable. She expanded the data parameters. Computers show any recorded incidents in this region. Only 3 appeared, all involving damaged vessels reporting navigational failures. 2 had been attributed to equipment malfunction, 1 to pilot error. All 3 had occurred within a month of each other, nearly 2 years ago. Too coincidental, Elena decided. She saved the data to her personal device. Something was happening in that space gorge, something worth investigating if the opportunity arose. The tortoise continued its solitary journey through FTL space, the steady hum of its engines, a reminder of its deliberate pace. Elena used the transit time to run battle drills, pushing her crew to respond to scenarios other captains might consider far-fetched gravitational weapon deployments, asteroid field combat, and multi-vector ambushes. By the time they approached Frontier Station, Epsilon, Engineer Min had completed the thrust booster modifications, and the crew had achieved record response times in Elena's unconventional drills. They emerged from FTL on schedule exactly 7 hours and 12 minutes after the rest of the fleet had arrived. Incoming transmission from Station Epsilon, announced Lieutenant Diza. On screen, Elena commanded, straightening in her chair. Fleet Admiral Joe's stern face appeared. Captain Voss, we were beginning to wonder if you'd gotten lost. Just adhering to the Tortoise's operational parameters, Admiral. We've used the transit time productively. I should hope so. Report to me on station at 0800 hours tomorrow. The rest of the fleet has already been briefed on patrol schedules. The transmission cut off abruptly. Charming as always, muttered Navigator Quan. Set course for docking, Elena ordered. All senior staff prepare your departments for inspection. Fleet Admiral Joe will be looking for any excuse to question our readiness. As the Tortoise approached the station, Elena observed the rest of the 7th Fleet vessels, arranged in perfect formation, around the massive structure. The station itself was a triumph of engineering, a sprawling complex of habitation rings, defensive arrays and docking arms extending like metallic tentacles into space. After docking procedures were complete, Elena spent hours reviewing reports and preparing for the Admiral's inspection. The Tortoise's systems were operating at peak efficiency, despite their design limitations, and morale was surprisingly high, given the constant reminders of their second-class status. Her sleep cycle was interrupted by the sudden wail of the emergency alert. "Captain Voss to the bridge immediately. Priority Alpha." Elena was moving before the message finished grabbing her uniform and reaching the bridge in under 2 minutes. "Report," she demanded, as the doors slid open. "Emergency signal from Forward Base Theta," responded Tactical Officer Vega, his dark features tense in the red alert lighting. "They're under attack from unknown forces. The transmission cut off approximately 7 minutes ago. Location of Forward Base Theta. Beyond the Epsilon border, Captain. It's an observation post in the neutral zone between Alliance and Outer Coalition territory." Elena assessed the situation quickly. "Status of our fleet. Already mobilizing. Fleet Admiral Joe has ordered immediate response. All vessels preparing for departure." "Get me command," Elena ordered, taking her seat. Admiral Joe's face appeared on screen, his expression grim. "Captain Voss, I assume you've received the alert." "Yes, Admiral. The Tortoise stands ready. All vessels are deploying to Forward Base Theta. Your ship will—" "Oh." "Sir," Elena interrupted a bold move that caused several bridge officers to exchange glances. "I request a different assignment for the Tortoise." Joe's expression darkened. "This is hardly the time for special accommodations, Captain." "Not accommodation, Admiral. Tactical diversification. By the time the Tortoise reaches Theta, the engagement will likely be concluded. I propose an alternative approach." For a moment it seemed Joe would dismiss her outright, but decades of tactical experience made him pause. "What approach?" Elena activated her tactical display, sharing it with the Admiral's feed. "Historical data shows 3 possible retreat vectors from Theta, if the attacking force wishes to avoid standard Alliance patrol routes. 2 would be easily intercepted by our faster vessels. The 3rd passes through the Dwarf Star Corridor, the Space Gorge. It's hazardous and rarely patrolled. You're suggesting they might use this route to escape? It presents minimum risk of interception. Our intelligence indicates Outer Coalition forces have been mapping gravitational anomalies for months. They could have plotted a safe passage." Joe considered this. "What are you proposing?" "While the fleet responds directly to Theta, allow the Tortoise to position at the far end of the Space Gorge. If they retreat through that corridor, we'll be waiting. And if they don't, then we rejoin the fleet afterward, no harm done." Joe studied her for a long moment. "Your ship would be isolated, potentially facing an entire enemy force without support. We're equipped for it, Admiral. The Tortoise has advantages in exactly this type of scenario." After another pause, Joe nodded curtly. "Very well, Captain Voss. Position your vessel at the coordinates you've specified. But understand this: if your theory proves incorrect, and Forward Base Theta falls, while your ship waits uselessly in some gravitational backwater, there will be consequences." "Understood, Admiral. Tortoise out." As the transmission ended, Elena became aware of the silent stares from her bridge crew. "Navigation plot course to the edge of the Dwarf Star Corridor exit vector, closest to Coalition space." Captain Chemical Officer Tal stepped forward. "May I speak freely?" "Briefly, officer." "This is reckless. We're placing ourselves directly in the path of potentially superior forces with no support." "Your concern is noted." "Captain, the thrust booster remains untested," added Engineer Min. "If we need to retreat quickly." "I didn't position us there for retreat, Engineer." Elena's voice cut through the growing murmurs of concern. "I positioned us there because it's where we can be most effective." "With respect, Tal persisted. "We should request that at least one Raptor-class vessel accompany us as support." Elena turned to face her command crew fully. "The fleet needs every fast vessel at Theta. We're executing this mission as planned. If anyone feels they cannot perform their duties under these circumstances, speak now." The bridge fell silent. "Very well. Navigator Quan, execute course. All stations prepare for potential combat operations. I want weapons and defensive systems at full readiness." As the Tortoise disengaged from the station and set course for the Space Gorge, Elena sensed the mixture of fear and excitement among her crew. They had trained for unconventional scenarios, but now faced the prospect of putting theory into practice against unknown odds. "Lieutenant Diza, open a shipwide channel," Elena ordered. "Channel open, Captain." "Crew of the ISS Tortoise, this is Captain Voss. As you've likely heard, Forward Base Theta is under attack. The main fleet is responding directly, while we have been assigned to cover a potential escape route through the Dwarf Star Corridor. This separate assignment is not a reflection of our lesser status or capabilities. It is a strategic deployment based on our unique strengths." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "We may face superior numbers. We may be called upon to engage an enemy that believes they've found safe passage. But the Tortoise was built for exactly this type of operation, patient, calculated interception, rather than swift strike. Today, we prove the value of our approach. Stand ready at your stations. Voss out." The journey to their designated position took nearly 5 hours, during which they received sporadic updates from Fleet Command. Forward Base. Theta had indeed been attacked by a squadron of Outer Coalition vessels, at least 6 warships of varying classes, executing a coordinated strike against the observation post's defenses. By the time the Alliance fleet arrived, the Coalition forces had already withdrawn, leaving the base heavily damaged with significant casualties. "They're in pursuit, Captain," reported Tactical Officer Vega. "The Coalition squadron split into 3 groups, each taking a different vector. The bulk of our fleet is pursuing the largest group along the main transit corridor." "And the other groups?" 2 vessels heading toward the Kalmar Nebula, with the Raptor's Indomitable and Fury in pursuit. The final group, 2 vessels of destroyer class, disappeared from sensors near the Hemera asteroid belt. Elena leaned forward. "Near the entrance to the Space Gorge?" "Yes, Captain. Admiral Joe transmitted a message. Your theory may have merit. Maintain position. Support vessels will be dispatched if available." Elena nodded grimly. "They won't be available. The fleet will commit to the main pursuit." She turned to Engineer Min. "Status of our thrust booster." "Ready to engage on your command, Captain. But again, I must emphasize the risk." "Noted, Engineer. Have it standing by." The Tortoise took position at the mouth of the Space Gorge, its sensors scanning the chaotic gravitational currents flowing between the dwarf stars. The region was a navigator's nightmare: shifting gravitational eddies, radiation flares from stellar activity, and debris pulled into erratic orbits. "Optimal combat position achieved," announced Navigator Quan. "But maintaining station will require constant adjustments to counter gravitational drift." "Environmental hazards?" Elena inquired. "Significant, Captain," responded Officer Tal, seemingly having accepted their mission despite earlier objections. "Radiation levels within acceptable parameters for our shielding, but the gravitational fluctuations could affect weapon targeting by up to 12%. Compensate as best you can. Tactical continuous sensor sweep. They'll try to mask their approach." Hours passed with no sign of the enemy vessels. The bridge crew maintained their vigilance, but tension began to give way to fatigue as their shift stretched beyond normal duration. "Captain," Tal approached her command chair, voice lowered. "The crew has been at combat readiness for over 12 hours. Perhaps we should consider rotating." "Contact Tactical Officer Vega's announcement cut through the bridge. 2 vessels entering the near side of the corridor. Configuration matches Outer Coalition Harrier-class destroyers." "Battle stations," Elena ordered, instantly reinvigorated. "On screen." The main view screen shifted to show the sensor reading 2 sleek vessels, navigating the turbulent space between the dwarf stars, their course erratic but purposeful, as they use the gravitational currents to accelerate. "They're moving faster than expected," noted Navigator Quan. "The gravitational assist is increasing their velocity by nearly 40%. Can we intercept before they exit the corridor?" Quan's fingers flew over his controls. "Not at standard speed, Captain. They'll clear the corridor before we can maneuver into firing position." Elena made her decision instantly. "Engineer Min, engage thrust booster. Maximum safe output." "Aye, Captain." Min's voice carried a note of trepidation as he input the commands. "Thrust booster engaging. Power redirecting from secondary systems." The tortoise lurched forward as its engines flared with newfound power. Throughout the ship, non-essential systems dimmed as energy was channeled to propulsion. Speed increasing," reported Quan. "Currently at 64% of standard Alliance vessel capacity, and rising. Intercept course plotted. Maintaining thrust booster at current levels, we can achieve firing position in 17 minutes. Elena studied the tactical display. "They'll be near the exit by then. Too close for comfort." "Captain," Tal's voice was urgent. "Engine temperature rising beyond safety parameters. If we maintain this output for 17 minutes, we risk catastrophic overload. Recommendations. We should reduce to 50% boost immediately," Tal insisted. Engineer Min spoke up. "Or we could use the gravitational field to our advantage. If we adjust course to ride the gravity wave at coordinates 227 Mark 43, we could slingshot around the larger dwarf star and cut intercept time to 12 minutes. At increased risk to the ship," countered Tal. "The gravitational shear could compromise hull integrity." "Our hull was designed to withstand precisely these conditions," Elena decided. "Navigator, plot the slingshot course. Engineer, maintain current boost levels, but prepare to cut power the moment we hit the gravity wave." The tortoise altered course, diving deeper into the chaotic space between the dwarf stars. The ship groaned as gravitational forces pulled at its frame, but the reinforced hull held firm. "Gravity wave approaching in 30 seconds, announced Quan. "All hands brace for turbulence." Elena gripped her command chair as the view screen showed the swirling distortion of space ahead. "Steady as she goes, Navigator." The tortoise hit the gravity wave like a boat, striking a massive ocean swell. The ship shuddered violently, alerts sounding across multiple stations as stress readings spiked. "Cut thrust booster," ordered Elena. "Let the wave carry us." The engines quieted as the tortoise surrendered to the gravitational current, accelerating along a curved trajectory that would slingshot them toward the coalition vessels. For several minutes, the bridge crew could only hold on as their ship rode the invisible force, occasionally firing maneuvering thrusters to maintain their planned course. "Emerging from gravity wave in 3, 2, 1, counted Quan. The tortoise shot forward like a stone from a sling, the sudden acceleration pressing the crew into their seats. Ahead, the enemy vessels came into visual range, their sleek, predatory forms, recognizable as latest-generation coalition destroyers. "Intercept in 2 minutes, Captain," reported Vega. "They've detected us. They're increasing speed and charging weapons." "Open a channel," Elena commanded. "Coalition vessels, this is Captain Elena Voss of the Alliance warship ISS Tortoise. You have violated Alliance space and attacked a sovereign installation. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded." The response came quickly, a burst of weapons fire that dissipated harmlessly against the tortoise's forward shields. "I'll take that as a refusal," Elena remarked dryly. "Tactical target their engines with conventional weaponry. Let's see if we can slow them down." The tortoise's primary batteries unleashed a barrage of focused energy, but the coalition ships performed evasive maneuvers with impressive agility, using the gravitational distortions to enhance their already superior speed. "Direct hit on Target 2, announced Vega as one of their shots connected. "Minimal damage. Their shields are optimized for energy weapons." Elena studied the tactical display, noting how the coalition vessels were using the gravitic anomalies to create unpredictable movement patterns. They were clearly familiar with this corridor, perhaps having practiced these very maneuvers in preparation. "They're going to escape unless we try something unconventional," she decided. "Officer Tal's status of our magnetic cannon." Tal looked surprised at the request. "Operational but untested in combat conditions, Captain. The targeting system is not calibrated for this environment." The magnetic cannon was the crew's nickname for an experimental weapon system installed on the Tortoise during its last refit, a device capable of generating directed magnetic fields, powerful enough to disrupt ship systems or even alter trajectory. It had been deemed too power-intensive and imprecise for standard combat operations. "Recalibrate it. I want to target the gravitational eddy at coordinates 115 Mark 87 just ahead of their current course." "Captain," Tal objected, "the magnetic cannon could interact unpredictably with the gravitational distortions. There's a significant risk of feedback that could damage our own systems." "A calculated risk, officer. Proceed with targeting." As Tal reluctantly prepared the magnetic cannon, Elena opened a channel to engineering. "Min, I need shield reinforcement to our forward sections. We may experience gravitational backlash." "Already on it, Captain. But I should warn you, the thrust booster drained more reserves than anticipated. Our power core is operating at 82% efficiency. It will have to be enough. Stand by." On the view screen, the Coalition vessels continued their evasive pattern, occasionally firing back at the Tortoise, but clearly more focused on escape than engagement. They were less than 4 minutes from clearing the corridor. "Magnetic cannon targeted and ready," Captain reported, Tal tension evident in their voice. "Firing solution locked on the gravitational eddy." "Fire," ordered Elena. The Tortoise shuddered as the magnetic cannon discharged, sending an invisible pulse of magnetic energy toward the target coordinates. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the space around the targeted area began to visibly distort as the magnetic field interacted with the gravitational anomalies. Effect more pronounced than anticipated, Tal announced, surprise evident in their tone. "The magnetic field is amplifying the gravitational distortion by a factor of 3 and expanding." On the tactical display, Elena watched as the leading Coalition vessel suddenly veered off course, caught in the enhanced gravitational pull. Its companion attempted to compensate, but was similarly affected, both ships now struggling against forces that threatened to pull them toward a nearby cluster of asteroids. "It worked," muttered Navigator Kwan in amazement. "Don't celebrate yet," cautioned Elena. "Tactical status of enemy vessels. Their engines are at maximum output, attempting to break free of the gravitational trap. Estimated time to escape 3 minutes. That gives us one shot," Elena decided. "Bring us to optimal firing position for the main battery. Target the lead vessel, the one with command markings." As the Tortoise maneuvered into position, the Coalition ships fired desperately at their attacker, but their weapons were compromised by the same gravitational distortions affecting their course. "In position, Captain," reported Vega. "Main battery charged and ready. Target locked." Elena surveyed the tactical situation one final time. The lead Coalition vessel, likely carrying the squadron commander, was struggling against the gravitational pull, its engines flaring with emergency power. "Fire," she commanded. The Tortoise's main battery discharged a concentrated beam of energy that cut through the distorted space between them. Under normal circumstances, a vessel of the Coalition destroyer's caliber would have adequate shields to withstand such an attack. But with systems compromised and shields weakened by the gravitational stress, the beam penetrated their defenses. "Direct hit," exclaimed Vega. "Target's engines disabled. They're being pulled into the asteroid field." "And the second vessel?" "Breaking free of the gravitational trap. They're altering course. They're moving to assist their companion." Elena had expected them to flee. "Interesting. Loyalty or valuable cargo?" She made a quick decision. "Target their maneuvering thrusters. Disable but don't destroy." The Tortoise fired again, a precisely calculated shot that crippled the second vessel's ability to maneuver effectively. Now, both Coalition ships were drifting toward the asteroid field, unable to escape. "Captain," Lieutenant Diza called from communications. I'm detecting a distress signal from the lead coalition vessel. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. Put it through. A voice, filled with static, came through the bridge speakers. This is Commander Raven of the Coalition Forces. Our vessel is critically damaged. Life support failing. Request immediate assistance. Open a channel, Elena ordered. Commander Raven, this is Captain Voss of the ISS Tortoise. Power down all remaining systems and prepare to be boarded. Any signs of resistance will be met with force. There was a pause before the response came. Understood, Captain Voss. We are complying. But I must inform you, we have wounded personnel requiring immediate medical attention. Medical teams will accompany our boarding party. Tortoise out. Elena turned to Security Chief Reyes. Prepare boarding teams. Full combat readiness, but priority on securing the vessels intact. I want prisoners, and intelligence, not corpses. Aye, Captain. Reyes moved to organize the operation. Lieutenant Diza, contact Fleet Admiral Zhou. Inform him we have intercepted and disabled 2 coalition vessels attempting to escape through the Space Gorge. Request support for prisoner transport and salvage operations. As the message was transmitted, Elena sensed a change in the bridge atmosphere. The tension of combat was giving way to something else, a mixture of relief, pride, and perhaps a touch of vindication. Her officers exchanged glances that conveyed a shared realization the slow, ungainly Tortoise had succeeded, where faster ships might have failed. Officer Tal approached her command chair. Captain, I owe you an apology. I didn't believe this approach would work. No apology necessary, officer. Healthy skepticism keeps us honest. Elena offered a small smile. Besides, I wasn't entirely certain myself. The magnetic cannon interaction was more effective than I'd calculated. Nevertheless, your strategy was sound. The Tortoise proved its worth today. The ship and its crew, Elena corrected. Your work calibrating the magnetic cannon under these conditions was exemplary. The boarding operation proceeded smoothly, with both coalition vessels secured within the hour. As expected, the lead ship carried the squadron commander, the so-called Raven, along with navigation data that would prove invaluable to Alliance intelligence. More surprising was the discovery of prototype gravitational mapping technology that explained how they had navigated the treacherous corridor with such confidence. 6 hours after the engagement, a response finally came from Fleet Command. The main coalition force had escaped the pursuing Alliance fleet, using their superior speed to break contact after leading their pursuers on an extended chase. The 2 vessels intercepted by the Indomitable and Fury had been destroyed when they refused to surrender, taking any intelligence they might have carried with them. Only the Tortoise had captured intact enemy vessels and prisoners. Admiral Zhou's transmission was brief, but uncharacteristically respectful. Captain Voss, your tactical assessment proved correct. Hold position with your prizes. Support vessels are en route to your location. The fleet will rendezvous at your coordinates within 12 hours. Well done, Tortoise. Zhou out. As the transmission ended, spontaneous applause broke out on the bridge, a breach of protocol that Elena allowed to continue for several moments before raising her hand for quiet. This victory belongs to all of you, she told her crew. Each person who maintained faith in our mission, who executed their duties with precision, despite doubt from within and without. Today, the Tortoise proved that victory isn't always about being the fastest. Sometimes it's about being in exactly the right place at the right time. Engineer Min stepped forward. And sometimes it's about having a captain who sees opportunities where others see limitations. The journey back to Frontier Station Epsilon was markedly different from their departure. The Tortoise led a small procession, its own massive form, the 2 captured coalition vessels under minimal power, and an escort of Alliance support craft that had arrived to assist with the prisoners and technology salvage. Upon docking, Elena was immediately summoned to Fleet Admiral Zhou's office. She expected a debriefing, perhaps even commendation for their success. What she found instead was a full gathering of the 7th Fleet's command staff, along with several admirals who had arrived from neighboring sectors. Captain Voss, Admiral Zhou, greeted her as she entered. Perfect timing. We were just discussing your engagement in the Space Gorge. Elena came to attention. Admiral. At ease, Captain. We've reviewed your tactical logs and debriefed the boarding teams. Your capture of Commander Raven and the gravitational mapping technology represents the most significant intelligence coup of this conflict to date. Thank you, sir. The tortoise performed admirably. Yes, Joe agreed, surprising her. Your vessel's unique capabilities proved decisive in this encounter. The magnetic cannon's interaction with the gravitational anomalies in particular has caught the attention of our tactical division. One of the other admirals, a woman Elena recognized as Admiral Chen of Research and Development, stepped forward. We've never considered using magnetic field generators to amplify natural gravitational distortions as a weapon before. The possibilities are intriguing. It was an improvised tactic, Admiral, Elena admitted. Based on theoretical discussions with my engineering and science teams. Sometimes the best innovations come from necessity, Chen replied. We'd like you to work with our tactical division to develop this approach further. Your experience navigating gravitational hazards that other captains avoid gives you a unique perspective. Fleet Admiral Joe cleared his throat. Which brings us to the purpose of this gathering. The Coalition forces clearly planned to use the Space Gorge as an escape route, because they knew our standard vessels avoid such regions. They counted on our obsession with speed and direct action. He activated a holographic display showing a map of Alliance territory. Intelligence now indicates similar gravitational anomalies exist throughout border regions, potential backdoors, into our territory, that we've overlooked because they're unsuitable for our conventional rapid response doctrine. You believe they're planning more incursions through these corridors? Elena asked. It's a distinct possibility, one we're now taking seriously. Joe looked around at the assembled officers. Which is why I've proposed, with the support of my fellow admirals, the formation of a new tactical unit vessels, specifically tasked with patrolling and securing these gravitational corridors. Admiral Chen continued. Ships that prioritize structural integrity over speed. Vessels equipped with enhanced sensor packages and gravitational manipulation technology. In short, Captain Voss ships like the Tortoise. Elena felt a moment of surprise. You're commissioning more Tectonic-class vessels. Better, replied Joe. We're creating an entire division, the Gravitational Response Force, and we're offering you command of the first squadron. The implications were enormous. After years of being dismissed as outdated and ineffective, the Tortoise had not only proven its worth, but potentially redefined Alliance naval doctrine. There's more, Admiral Chen added. We want you to develop training protocols for captains and crews assigned to this force. Your unconventional tactical approach, what my staff has begun calling Voss Doctrine, using slowness to leverage gravitational advantage, needs to be formalized and taught. Elena took a moment to absorb this unexpected turn of events. I'm honored, Admirals. The Tortoise and her crew stand ready to serve in whatever capacity you deem appropriate. Excellent, Joe nodded. We'll begin the formal procedures immediately. In the meantime, your crew has earned some well-deserved rest. Repairs and upgrades for the Tortoise will commence tomorrow. We're particularly interested in further developing that thrust booster your engineer improvised. As the meeting concluded and Elena prepared to return to her ship, Admiral Chen pulled her aside. Between us, Captain, there were those in command who wanted to decommission all Tectonic-class vessels last year, called them floating museums. Your actions have not only saved the Tortoise, but potentially opened a new chapter in Alliance naval strategy. Sometimes the old ways still have value, Elena replied. We just need to see their potential in a new light. Indeed. And speaking of new light, Chen handed her a data crystal. These are preliminary designs for the next generation of gravitational corridor vessels, building on the Tortoise's framework, but incorporating lessons from your recent engagement. We're calling the class Testudo, the ancient Roman formation that prioritized protection over speed. I'd value your input on the specifications. Elena accepted the crystal with a sense of profound satisfaction. I look forward to reviewing them, Admiral. Returning to the Tortoise, Elena found her senior officers waiting in the briefing room, curiosity evident on their faces. Well, Engineer Min prompted as she entered. Don't keep us in suspense, Captain. Are we being reassigned to cargo duty as punishment for excessive creativity? Elena allowed herself a full smile. Not exactly, Engineer. It seems the Alliance has developed a newfound appreciation for unconventional tactics and gravitational manipulation. They're forming a new division specifically for vessels like ours to patrol the gravitational corridors throughout Alliance space. And the Tortoise asked Officer Tal, who had become notably more supportive since their successful engagement. We'll be the flagship of the first squadron with upgrades to our gravitational sensors and magnetic systems. They're particularly interested in your thrust booster, Min. Expect visits from the R&D team starting tomorrow. The officers exchanged glances of surprise and pride. There's more, Elena continued. They want us to develop training protocols for other captains and crews, teaching them to think beyond conventional speed-based tactics and embrace what they're calling VOS doctrine. Security Chief Reyes whistled. From mockery to doctrine in one engagement, that must be some kind of record. It wasn't just one engagement, Elena corrected. It was years of preparation training for scenarios others dismissed, and a crew willing to trust in our ship's unique capabilities rather than lamenting its limitations. She looked around at her senior officers, people who had initially doubted, but ultimately embraced her vision. The Tortoise proved that sometimes being in exactly the right place is more important than getting to many places quickly. That patience and positioning can overcome raw speed. Engineer Min raised an imaginary glass. To the slowest ship in the fleet and the only one to capture intact coalition vessels. The others joined the toast, even Officer Tal, whose earlier skepticism had transformed into firm support. As her officers celebrated this unexpected vindication, Elena found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. The Tortoise had never been the fastest, the most advanced, or the most respected vessel in the Alliance fleet. But today, it had proven to be exactly the right ship for a mission no other could have accomplished. In the ancient fable that gave their ship its name, the Tortoise had defeated the Hare not through superior speed, but through persistence and steady progress. Today, the ISS Tortoise had written its own version of that story, one that would reshape Alliance naval doctrine for generations to come. And as for Captain Elena Voss, who had endured years of subtle mockery and professional skepticism for her faith in an outdated vessel, she had transformed from an outlier to a visionary, her slow approach, now recognized as a tactical revolution. Sometimes being the slowest ship in the fleet was exactly the advantage you needed.